Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ESIP annual business meeting and the state of ESIP. I'm Ken Casey, ESIP's president, and I'm joined by Susan Chingeldecker, ESIP's executive director, for the final session of our January 2022 meeting. In this session today, Susan will share the highlights from 2021 and some insights about where ESIP is heading in the coming year. And we'll hear from our three federal agency sponsors as well about their priorities in the year ahead. We'll then take some time to recognize and celebrate leaders in the ESIP community, both with the formal transition of our elected leadership, which happens at the close of the meeting, and our annual awards celebration. Finally, ESIP partners will choose our new committee members through our caucusing process, which will happen in breakout rooms this year. As this is our annual business meeting, please change your name in Zoom to include your name and your organization so we can have an accurate record of the attendance. So before I turn it over to Susan, I want to take a moment to share with all of you how proud I am of the ESIP community and our volunteer leadership. The things you've all achieved over the last year are truly remarkable and span an incredible range, from setting up a points of interest walk around a middle school, high school campus, to enabling usage-based data discovery, to establishing knowledge networks and beyond. It's just amazing. The list goes on and on and on. To say I feel lucky to be part of this community is a massive understatement. Every moment I spent interacting with the people of ESIP feels like a gift to me. And speaking of gifts, I especially want to thank the ESIP staff, Allison, Annie, Barr, Megan, Patty, and Susan. As I mentioned back in the opening plenary at the start of the week, this team is not just surviving, they are truly thriving. While America may be experiencing the great resignation, the ESIP team is strong and committed 100% to the success of our community. Perhaps most admirably, their professional commitment and technical skills are matched really by their commitment to their families too. I've been so inspired by each of them and how they've been navigating the troubled waters of our times, making ESIP happen while simultaneously caring for themselves and their loved ones. It's clear they understand the road we are on at ESIP is a long one. And if you're going to walk a long road, you have to take care of yourself and those around you. After getting to know the ESIP team so much better over the past year, it's really no surprise that our community is so well taken care of and in such great hands. So please join me in thanking them for another fantastic meeting and another fantastic year. So go ahead, feel free to unmute, and everyone give a big clap to our ESIP team. Thank you very much. So now let me hand it over to Susan for the State of ESIP address, where I think you'll see the positive story of ESIP shine bright and true. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you, Ken. So after an action-packed week, I am excited to be with you to share the state of ESIP. I'm not gonna lie, 2021 was tough, but this community showed up and continues to show up for each other each and every day. For many of us in 2021, I suspect we have finally gotten what we've been looking for over the last 20 plus years, but perhaps not in the way we wanted. With the unprecedented fire seasons, the extreme weather events, the intense tropical systems, we are having an impact that is sadly, finally, too great to ignore. The world has woken up to the climate realities that the scientific community has been warning of for decades. Our work matters more now than ever. Here at ESIP, as a community, we believe that the quality of life, economic opportunities, and stewardship of our planet are enhanced by regular use of scientifically sound earth science data provided in a timely manner by a collaborative community that is working together to continually innovate. To me, the challenges we face as a world today are so great. We know that data is at the heart of understanding and overcoming those challenges. We believe that no one person or organization can address these challenges alone, but that by working together in a collaborative, coordinated fashion and putting data at the center, we can solve some of the world's greatest problems. Work as if you have already succeeded. Data needs to be a first-class citizen, an object of conservation. In 2021, we lost a pillar of our community, Peter Fox. We honor his legacy and we look to carry on his work together. ESIP's theme for 2021 was leading innovation in earth science data frontiers. And our opening video just now shows some of those frontiers. The conversations in ESIP meetings, webinars, and workshops ranged from space and satellites to mountain snow and marine navigation, from software development to developing soft skills, from innovative partnerships to grassroots citizen science. Looking forward to 2022, our theme for this year is data for all people, from generation to use and understanding. As we have seen here this week, these questions are big. How can we ensure that data gets to the hands of those who need it most? How is trust built for earth science and related data? All people, including data professionals, researchers, public officials, and communities, need access to usable data and information. ESIP's theme for 2022 will dive into the technology, data literacy, and process transparency that influence data generation, use, and understanding. Beyond our annual themes, here are ESIP's 5 strategic themes that were endorsed by the ESIP Assembly 1 year ago. These 5 themes will guide our efforts over the next 4 years. As you know, ESIP focuses on 3 primary approaches to support the community, foster innovation, and encourage collaboration. That is our virtual collaboration, meetings, and the ESIP Lab. Please allow me to dive deeper into each of these areas to give you an overview of some key accomplishments in 2021 and hints at our direction and priorities for 2022. People are the heart of ESIP, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the work of our collaboration areas. These groups meet regularly throughout the year to advance work on specific areas of focus. This image always intrigues me as it shows how working together we can accomplish what otherwise seems unimaginable. I enjoyed at the last coffee networking hour, someone saying that, wow, the list of collaboration areas today looks really different than it did 3 years ago. And it's intended to be that way. That's how we can be an agile organization evolving to continually meet your needs and serve where you want to see things go. I want to thank the people who make our collaboration areas happen. There are amazing leaders on this list. We thank you for your creativity and energy. Additionally, I want to thank Megan Carter, our community director, for her role in working with all of our collaboration areas this year, and Lindsay Barbieri for shepherding some of our cross-cluster collaboration efforts. With 30 collaboration areas in ESIP, can you believe that we had 344 hours of committee and cluster calls in 2021? Some of you probably can believe that. You were on a lot of them. That is nearly 1 hour for every day of the year. Some clusters are more active than others, but this effort can really add up when you look at the number of volunteers on each call. We estimate over 1,600 hours of collective community engagement, and this doesn't include our webinars and meetings like we had this week. We have seen some great outputs from our collaboration areas in 2021. At the July meeting, the Education Committee, seen here, organized Exploring Earth, Wind, and Fire via Earth Science Data, a teacher workshop that attracted over 50 K-12 educators. The feedback from the teachers was overwhelming. And I say that to let you know that we really do read your post-meeting surveys. It was great to connect with some of these teachers Wednesday night in our research showcase. On the right here, you can see a great new output from the Biological Data Standards Cluster, a primer designed to provide a step-by-step guide for data managers, especially those working with large biological data sets. It was especially exciting to see the Biological Data Standards Cluster team up with the Marine Data Cluster for yesterday's breakout session on marine data management. This is exactly the kind of cross-cluster collaboration we are looking to see. Lastly, I want to highlight the work of the Air Quality Cluster. Pictured here is an image of Los Angeles at night. At our summer meeting, the Air Quality Cluster led a hackathon to foster creative problem solving around 3 end user scenarios, one in LA. This activity drew participation of over 30 individuals from more than a dozen ESIP partners and was powered by technology from Esri in the form of access to their ArcGIS online platform. We are excited for the 3 new clusters launched in 2021. So tell us, what do you and your cluster partners want to achieve in 2022, and how can we help you? These 6 bullets outline areas where I am looking to enhance our support of collaboration areas. If you need help finding a collaboration area home, developing a work plan, connecting with other related collaborations, or evolving a cluster, please reach out to Megan or me. We want to support your work. Another core program key to supporting our collaboration areas is the ESIP Community Fellows Program. These graduate students and postdocs have research interests aligned with the groups that they support. Our 2021 fellows were a remarkable cohort. They were energetic and responsive. They have stepped up in so many ways. We have had a number of conversations with our federal partners about how ESIP can help cultivate our next generation of earth science and environmental data management professionals. I am so excited to see where these fellows are going after their fellowships, with some entering federal careers and federal fellowship programs, and others working with leading cooperative institutions. So I am equally pleased to introduce you to our 22 class of community fellows pictured here. I hope you have met them throughout the week in your sessions. They were busy taking notes, creating breakout rooms, and much more. Here you can see the cluster that each fellow will be supporting this year, and I am confident you will feel their impact as they get to know ESIP. I happen to know that the job opportunities channel in the ESIP Slack has been on fire lately. I encourage all of you to look to our community fellows for our next generation of data management professionals. Moving on to meetings. Our meetings draw participation from around the world. And I wanted to share a few stats on our meetings in 2021, so not counting this past week. First, you may have noticed a subtle shift in messaging from our winter and summer meetings to our January and July meetings. That is intentional to be more clear for our Southern Hemisphere friends who have opposite seasons. You will see we had 828 meeting attendees between January and July meetings, which must be close to an ESIP record, and a whopping 295 first-timers. We will be working over the next year to focus on bringing these new faces into ESIP and deeper into our community. For our meetings, the ESIP team tried to balance strengthening the platforms that worked well with careful innovation and bringing in one or two new elements each meeting. We heard from you that one of the most impactful investments we can make in our meetings is support for virtual facilitation, coaching, and assistance. We were thrilled to see nearly 30 community members in our session design training and others who took advantage of the additional office hours and one-on-one support. Your investment shows in the really great sessions we saw this week. Our meetings would not be possible without sponsorship support. I want to thank SAIC, ESRI, Microsoft, AGU, and Element 84 for being ESIP meeting sponsors in 2021. Your investment in our community greatly supports our collaboration, powers innovation, and enhances ESIP's sustainability. Behind the scenes, the ESIP team also supports a number of key high-impact events with our agency partners throughout the year. While only a smaller subset of the ESIP community sees the events, it allows us to connect deeper with each of our 3 agency sponsors. In 2021, we were happy to support NASA's ESPSWG in February. We focused on early career networking with USGS's CDI meeting in May. We facilitated NOAA's EDMW in August and their AI meeting in September. And in October, we led the US Geo tabletop exercise that inspired yesterday's plenary session. I'm sure someone can spell out all those acronyms in the chat, but you get where I'm going. The support looks different for each meeting, depending on each agency's needs. I always find nuggets of inspiration in each session that I love to share, including a favorite here from E.O. Wilson, another legend that we lost this year. We are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. The world will henceforth be run by synthesizers, people able to put together the right information at the right time, think critically about it, and make important choices wisely. No pressure, ESIP, but I think he's speaking to all of us. Aside from running meetings and workshops, ESIP attends other partner meetings and conferences. One way we have an impact in this space has been to take a standard exhibit booth and turn it into a collaborative data help desk, connecting researchers with data and informatics professionals familiar with their domains with a focus on making data fair. This program is at the core of our partnership with EarthView. In 2021, we held virtual data help desks in conjunction with EGU and GSA, and for the first time ever had a hybrid data help desk at the AGU Fall Meeting. Demand for this program is growing. Megan created a guide to hosting data help desks to help scale this effort and enable partners, including the Ecological Society of America, and the American Meteorological Society annual meetings lead their own data help desks with our support. Looking forward, we can confirm that having both physical and virtual events is a lot more work. The addition of Allison Mills, ESIP's communications manager, has helped us bolster our virtual activities in a significant way. Still, we need to determine our path moving ahead. EarthCube funding to support the data help desk will end soon. We, however, remain committed to what the data help desk represents and to the strong partnerships we have forged with AGU and EGU, as well as many individual volunteers over the last 15 data help desks. Another way we support society meetings is with the hosting of Ignite at AGU. After last year's virtual watch party, it was great to be back in a safe in-person gathering. This was our first in-person event in our COVID world. I want to acknowledge Annie's hard work and effort that went into not just finding the speakers, but working with the NASA team to find a venue that would be safe and fun with an outdoor area for socializing and refreshments. I know many of you saw our sneak peek at yesterday's coffee break. We are excited to be hosting a full Ignite watch party where we will play all the videos of the 8 fun case talks. We are looking forward to a lively discussion with the speakers at the same time. If you enjoy this format, I challenge you now to start thinking about what your Ignite talk will look like next year. Beyond our meetings in 2021, throughout the year, we continued our thematic focus with a webinar series. We were grateful for the generous support of SAIC as our webinar sponsor for 2021. With the theme of leading innovation in earth science data frontiers, we hosted 6 webinars during the year to keep the conversations going for the entire community. These webinars had reach of over 600 views on YouTube in addition to the live attendees. So looking forward, we are excited to plan ESIP July in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, July 18th to 22nd. Please save the dates. Patty and our meetings committee are hard at work to make this first in-person ESIP meeting in over 2 years an amazing experience. Our lively discussion in Tuesday's happy hour showed me that there are many opinions on what meetings of the future should include. We will keep a focus on reestablishing personal connections while working to keep the higher levels of participation we have seen over the last 2 years. We want to work to keep the accessibility and equity benefits we see in a virtual meeting and pair that with the camaraderie and focus found at in-person meetings. We will continue to research the latest trends and the most cost-effective ways to incorporate hybrid participation. We also need to look at increased interest and demand for ESIP's facilitation and hosting of workshops to ensure we provide the robust and interactive experience that ESIP has become known for. Moving on to the ESIP Lab. The ESIP Lab is managed by our lab director, Dr. Annie Burgess. The lab provides numerous opportunities that encourage technical skill development and community building, ultimately reducing the time to science. In 2021, we awarded $60,000 in small grants and $24,000 in Funding Friday awards at the summer meeting. I had the pleasure of speaking to several ESIP Lab PIs and Funding Friday winners at Wednesday's Research Showcase. What excites me most about the lab is the camaraderie and teamwork that I see when organizations push to go beyond what is safe and familiar and challenge each other to try new approaches. I also love seeing an idea that gets incubated with a small investment in the lab go on to gain traction and funding from larger, more prestigious programs. This year, I was also excited to see a lab-funded PI apply to become an ESIP Community Fellow, deepening his engagement with the community. The lab is also a great place for public-private partnerships. We have been grateful for the long-standing in-kind support in the form of cloud credits from AWS, and we're excited to welcome Microsoft as a lab sponsor in the form of not only Azure credits, but additional support. It is my aim to see the ESIP Lab as a platform-neutral space where researchers can come to learn and experiment with their technology of choice. In addition to our grants program, the lab has also created programs and places for our federal agency partners. Here you can see 4 areas where Annie and the ESIP Lab work with NOAA, NASA, and USGS to harness the power of cloud computing and accelerate technology infusion, including our Q-Hub environment, where we have over 90 active users across multiple federal agencies and academic institutions. Volunteer leadership is essential to ESIP's success. ESIP is led by our board and program committee. I am grateful to these leaders for their time and guidance, especially in my first full year with ESIP. I especially want to thank our departing board leaders, Nancy Hobel-Heinrich, Bill Tang, and Sarah Ramdeen, for their service. A core priority, both of mine and of this board's, is our investment and focus in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. I am proud that in September, nearly 75 ESIP community members participated in implicit bias and bystander training. This is a great start, but it is just that, a start. At our meeting last week, the board adopted a resolution to stand up an advisory committee on equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice. Later today, we will caucus to staff this committee and all of ESIP's administrative committees. It gives me great pleasure to introduce ESIP's board and program committee for 2022, as elected by you, the ESIP Partner Assembly. I am grateful to those leaders who decided to continue their service to ESIP and for our new leaders. I am excited to welcome Amber Budden and Philemon Guyanayo to the board and Steve Diggs as chair of our Data Stewardship Committee. ESIP is a great leadership training ground. If you caught my poster at AGU or on Wednesday night, you will know that investing in our leadership is a priority of mine for 2022. If you are on the fence considering ESIP leadership, whether it's at the cluster level, committee, or board, I would love to talk with you about that. And I'm always happy to provide you with more insights into the inner workings of ESIP. From an organizational health perspective, ESIP is very strong. We added 10 new partners in 2022, bringing our partner total to nearly 180. While this graph looks impressive, this spring we will be implementing a new community database that will help us measure and understand our engagement with each of you individually and with your organization. We will be looking for your help to make sure we have the most accurate information possible. This will likely involve extensive outreach to re-engage with some of our less active partners. If this is something that interests you, I would love to see you on the partnership committee this year. If your organization is not yet a partner, what are you waiting for? Partnership is free and members enjoy many benefits of ESIP, including discounted meeting registration, eligibility for lab funding, the ability to propose clusters, and the ability to serve in elected leadership. The state of ESIP would not be complete without a bit of insight into our financials. Even with COVID, our budget remained pretty steady this year. You will see a decrease in revenue, but rest assured that this is not that our federal awards went down. It is just more challenging to spend money as quickly in a COVID world. Funding that would normally go to meeting and travel was instead invested in community training, communications, and technology. We also tried to better align our committee budgeting process with the leadership transition, and this resulted in committees receiving budgets later than usual. As you can see from the pie charts, most of ESIP's funding comes from federal grants and a few foundation and university grants. Meeting registration makes up a meaningful portion of our income along with sponsorship. These sources help cover costs that cannot be charged to our federal grants, and is currently our only real way to build a reserve. A healthy nonprofit should have a minimum 3 to 6 months operating costs in reserve. While we aren't there yet, we have made great progress over the last 2 years. Our annual audit is currently in progress, and at its conclusion, we expect to add an additional $30,000 to $40,000 to our reserves, bringing them up to over $100,000. This is impressive accomplishment, especially during COVID, and especially considering that federal funding cannot contribute to a reserve. This is great progress, but we still have a ways to go. If you're interested in learning more about the financial operations of ESIP, consider serving on the Finance Committee or reach out to me. Transparency on financials is important, and to that aim, we have provided more details in our annual report. Lastly, I must take a moment to acknowledge the incredible ESIP staff. As Ken noted, in a time of unprecedented employment turnover, I am grateful for this amazing team. I hope you have gotten to know them, but in case you haven't, we have Annie Burgess, the ESIP Lab Director in Bozeman, Montana, Megan Carter, our Community Director in Nyack, New York, Patty Allen, our Operations Director in Manassas, Virginia, Allison Mills, our Communications Manager in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and Lindsay Barbieri, our Agriculture and Climate Fellow in Burlington, Vermont. The work of community building and support takes a ton of behind the scenes effort, and this team is really terrific at what they do. From here, it is my pleasure to turn things over to leaders from our 3 federal agency sponsors, NASA, NOAA, and USGS. We will start with Kevin Murphy from NASA and then go on to Tony Lavoie from NOAA and finally Sky Bristol. Take it away, Kevin.
I'll figure this out maybe at the end of next year. We'll figure it out. But yeah, thank you very much, Susan. This was a great talk, and you know, ESIP has been excellent for many years. I think I've been coming to ESIP since early 2000, so it's been a long time. So I'll get started here. Yeah, Kevin Murphy. I'm from NASA. I recently changed jobs back in March of 2021. My new title is Chief Science Data Officer for the Science Mission Directorate. And I still am kind of the program manager for the Earth Science Data Systems. So really do appreciate the opportunity to talk. And I saw Martha on. It was really good to see her. So a lot of thanks go out to Martha for helping initiate ESIP and also great groundwork for me to slide into as I move to headquarters. So some of the priorities that we're working towards at NASA over the next year, actually multiple years, is we really initiated something called the Open Source Science Initiative. And this is a Science Mission Directorate-wide activity, which really builds off a lot of the work that we kind of prototyped and learned from through the ESIP community. It's recognized pretty well within NASA that Earth science informatics is really leading the charge in terms of data management, stewardship, and innovation. And we're trying to take those lessons learned from there and apply it to the other 4 divisions within the Science Mission Directorate. So I think a lot of what I'm about to talk about will be pretty familiar to this group, and it's certainly built off all the hard work and the effort that this group has been undertaking over the past 20 plus years. So what is the Open Source Science Initiative? It's really composed of a number of different distinct activities. One is kind of the evolution of our data and computing systems to better support an open source science ecosystem. The second one is really about training to support people to do work within those areas, things like data stewardship, like we just heard about, as well as software development and open science kind of collaboration activities. The last kind of bit about it is really support for communities to open source their software and conduct open science projects. To that end, you know, we're not just doing this in these kind of small targeted ways, but we're also changing the basic policy framework under which a lot of science is done at NASA. So back in August of 2021, I believe it was August, maybe it was September, we released the Science Policy Directive 41, which really encapsulates all of the requirements related to NASA's science missions and their need for open data, their need for open information and software. Currently, we have Appendix A for SPD 41 on the street and open for information comments. I think that closes on May 11th now. And that's really extending what we do to really support the policy framework necessary to do open source science. So again, thanks to ESIP, I think that we're pretty well positioned to do a lot of this work. The collaboration and the partnerships that we've uncovered and the technical expertise that we've done here have been incredibly insightful and invaluable. I'd also like to kind of just, like everyone else has probably done, remember Peter Fox. He was incredibly important and a leader in so many of the things that we were doing. His loss is going to be felt for a long time. So we do miss him quite a bit. Within NASA, however, you know, we have you know, not only come up with this new initiative, but we're also reorganizing our workforce to support this initiative. As a Chief Science Data Officer, I still work with the Earth Science Division. We now have a Chief Science Data Office, or Chief Science Data Office. Yeah, I guess that's what it's called. And I recently hired or selected a deputy. Her name's Katie Baines, which probably isn't too surprising. So she'll be official on the 13th of February, and we'll be soliciting for a couple of more positions, probably in the late February or early February, late January timeframe. So keep your eye out for USA jobs if you want to help us, implement open science and run the Earth science data systems at NASA. There would be 2 permanent hires at headquarters. So why are we doing all this? Well, one, we're doing it so that we can really work with the other sister divisions within the Science Mission Directorate. But secondly, we're doing it in preparation for this big new thing called the Earth System Observatory. Earth System Observatory is kind of the next generation of missions that we have. And those will all be open source science missions. And what do we mean by open source science missions? I'm not sure if it's been discussed here, but what we are doing is we're making a commitment to make all the data, the metadata, the software, the documentation available on a full, free, and open basis, which has been our policy for at least 25 years. But we're going to start that much earlier in the mission lifecycle now. We're going to start that in phase B so that we can really start building the communities around these new measurement types with open software, open documentation, and open participation in meetings very early in the mission development process. We think that there are lots of products that we probably haven't been able to produce either because of budgetary constraints or lack of a really wide tent to participate. By providing these resources very early for people to kind of participate and work with the software and everything else that we're doing, it will be a lot easier to really make a difference in how people use the data that come from these missions 5 years later and integrate it directly into their workflows. And what that means is the software will be developed openly. Our manuscripts and journals will be published as gold or green journals, or in gold or green journals, and NASA will pick up the cost to make them open. Calibration information, everything will be open. So that's quite a big effort, and that's going to also take an effort on our side within the data systems programs to support that work. As you might imagine, as we have more and more software open and potentially even community contributions to that software, we'll need to maybe re-envision how we support that through our distributed active archive centers, how we migrate to the cloud, and how we format and make those products available for a lot of different groups and users. We've got a couple of activities. One is Unbound, which is really kind of working with communities that traditionally had not used our products, understanding their needs, and trying to see what things we can do to make them easier to use. And Stinger Goala is supporting that. We're working with a variety of different groups to support environmental justice and making our data available to those groups through collaborations with the census, with the USDA, and others. One of the big things that we're doing, and I think has been discussed here to support open source science, is our Transformed Open Science Initiative, or TOPS. And that's going to be a 5-year effort that we're kicking off this year to really prepare the community in collaboration with others to conduct open science, especially in kind of big data intensive and cloud ways. We see this as a way also to support our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility activities by really focusing and targeting some investments in areas that have been traditionally either marginalized or underinvested in, and to really support kind of the growth of those communities to use our products. So I guess what I'm saying is, thank you to ESIP, first of all, for all the work that you've done. We look forward to continuing this collaboration that we've been undergoing for 20 plus years, and we have a really bright future ahead, assuming that we get some appropriations in the not too distant future. We can actually kick these things off with some serious gusto, and look forward to talking with you all over the next couple of days here. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kevin. I'm going to turn it over next to Tony Lavoie to give us a perspective from NOAA.
Hey, great. Thank you, Susan. And I think you're going to hear some common themes in what I'm going to present to what you just heard from Kevin. So first of all, Tony Lavoie, the NOAA Chief Data Officer. I'm definitely an ESIP newbie. Last year at this meeting was my first opportunity to address the ESIP membership. So really looking forward to the opportunity again today. And a very similar theme for our update is the ESIP NOAA collaboration. So next slide, please. And bear with me on my voice. I'm at the tail end of a very light brush with COVID, and seems that everything's fine except for my voice. So hopefully it'll hold out. So the first thing that I wanted to do was just to highlight the NOAA priorities, because I think there's a really strong alignment with what Susan actually covered during her remarks. We have a new NOAA administrator, Dr. Rick Spinrad, who is not new to NOAA. And many of you might know Dr. Spinrad. He actually used to be the chief NOAA scientist and had a couple of other positions in the organization, went back to Oregon State University, and has come back to NOAA as the administrator. And it's really been energizing, I think, for our science and data workforce. We still have a strong commitment towards science and service and stewardship. And then you can see the three priorities of climate, the role that we provide or play in providing authoritative source for climate products and services, balancing our mission of supporting environmental stewardship as well as economic development, and then the equitable access to our products and services. So it's so similar in my mind to what NOAA is looking at, and then what Susan talked about in terms of supporting life and economic opportunities and stewardship of the planet through scientifically sound earth science data. So I think it's pretty logical that there's such a strong collaboration between NOAA and ESIP. So next slide. So being not that familiar with ESIP, I had the opportunity to work with Ken in putting these slides together. And one of the things that we did was we kind of took a step back and said, why is it that we value the ESIP model? What is it that we as an organization and comprised of all the individuals in the organization that participate in ESIP, what do we get out of it? And here are four things, specific things. The first is in the area of training and education. And it's this kind of just-in-time learning, agile learning. The people who participate in ESIP within NOAA, they learn a lot and they learn it quickly. It's turned out to be a great source for training and education. Secondly, obviously, is the networking opportunities. Being in a federal agency, it's oftentimes easy to find yourself talking to the same individuals, the same groups of stakeholders. And I think ESIP provides a mechanism for our data scientists and data managers to broaden their perspectives. In terms of leadership opportunities, we've taken advantage of not only formal elected roles like Ken in his ESIP president's role, but also a number of the clusters. We've provided volunteer leadership, and that's a great opportunity for staff, maybe staff that are, not typically in a position to lead either internally within the organization, but leading at the sectoral level is fantastic. And then lastly, how ESIP works and the model for collegial, collaborative, supportive, and inclusive spaces. So when I saw this feedback, I thought it was just fantastic, and I can completely see why NOAA has valued our relationship for so long. So next slide. So just a couple of particulars, and it was when people were coming on, I saw that Jeff DLB is on, and Ted Haberman, and Ted and Jeff know the environmental data procedural directives well from their prior time leadership within NOAA. But we've listed here just four of our procedural directives are our data policies, basically. It's just what we call them. And you can see our archive, appraisal, our data citation, our data documentation, and our data access. These four PDs all benefited from our participation in ESIP. So members of the ESIP community have had a role in our NOAA data governance. So next slide. And then more kind of current collaboration, obviously Ken. I thought this stat was really good as well. So roughly 85% of the active ESIP collaboration areas, so the clusters and committees, have some type of NOAA participation. At least one NOAA staff person is involved. You can see the highest participation clusters as well as the committees. This past year, been really excited about the data readiness cluster. I'll talk a little bit more about the AI ready data in a second, and also the work in the biological data standards cluster, which I think Susan mentioned earlier was presented yesterday. And then Susan also mentioned the support that NOAA was able to provide through the education committee for the K-12 educator workshop that was held. I love the title of Earth, Wind, and Fire. I thought that was great. So next slide. Some of you might have attended the session that I think Tyler and Doug ran. I think it might have been Tuesday this week. But specifically this area of AI ready data, it's getting a lot of interest and excitement within the NOAA community. I know members of our NOAA AI Center are active in ESIP as well. So the key questions there of, how is it that data users find data that they can use in AI, and then how do we assess the usability? So back in the 2020 timeframe, NOAA staff started defining the requirements. We helped create the data readiness cluster. Immediate collaboration seemed to touch a little bit of a nerve, so broad collaboration through ESIP. And again, this idea of broadening outside of our normal kind of federal sphere. Where are we at? There was a survey that went out in the November-December timeframe. I think it closed right before the end of the year. Results from that survey will be out in February. Tyler or Doug might even have presented on some of the results earlier. I was not able to participate. Hope is for the draft standard for AI ready data in later this spring, and then spring, summer pilot implementations. So I can tell you within NOAA, we will definitely be testing out that AI open data standard. So next slide. I wanted to both revisit the NOAA Big Data Program, but also emphasize or highlight an existing NOAA ESIP partnership. So many of you are probably familiar with the NOAA Big Data Program. It's all about democratizing access to NOAA's data in the cloud. This started about 8 years ago, cooperative research and development agreements with 5 partners. Approximately 3 years ago, we graduated, if you will, from the R&D into programmatic operations with Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. We have individual contracts with each of these companies. They're small dollar contracts. They're a couple $100 a year. And the idea here is that NOAA provides our data and our scientific and data management expertise. The cloud partners provide the access to their cloud, and then the users are able to either stay on the cloud and compute, or they're able to egress the data at no cost to them. So a really good, innovative public-private partnership. So next slide. And where the BDP stands right now is it continues to grow. We have over 14 petabytes of data, 220 data sets. But it's not just about the data. Yeah, it's not just kind of this passive, if you will, put the data up in the cloud. There is active work from the CSPs, from our Cooperative Institute data broker, and from NOAA BDP and NOAA programmatic staff in all types of outreach through social media notification, user engagement, training opportunities. The other thing that's been interesting, you'll see the web link there. If you haven't been on the BDP site in a while, you might want to check that link out and take a look at some of the data that's up there. But it's not just access to our archive data. We're finding that there's more and more opportunities for providing access through the BDP for near real-time use. So next slide. So this is the ESIP connection, the NOAA Cloud Pathfinders program. Susan had this up where she talked about NOAA, NASA, and USGS Cloud. Working with Annie Burgess on this, but the basic idea is that we've got within NOAA, we've got scientists and data managers that are really interested in learning more about utilizing the cloud. And they are interested in quicker, easier ways to get in and to begin to use in a sandbox type environment. So next slide. So what we've been able to do is working in partnership with ESIP and AWS with some credits that have been provided. We've identified or selected 4 initial projects. I love the fact that these are spread across 3 of our 6 mission areas. So we have a fisheries pilot project. We have 2 out of our weather service, and then 1 out of NCEI. Different use cases. There's, I think it's approximately 12.5 individuals that make up this initial cohort. They're meeting on a regular basis, working with the AWS scientists and the ESIP team. And the whole idea is utilizing the BDP, getting access to the AWS cloud environment, and really pushing forward knowledge, increasing the knowledge of our data scientists in what's possible in the cloud environment. So next slide. Just a couple more. The other thing we wanted to mention is we're also, involved in a number of other cloud-related activities, like everybody else. And one of our big pushes right now is moving our data archive and enhancing access out of the cloud. So we are in the process of transitioning that archive in 2022. We're aiming for an initial data archiving and accessing capability later this year. It's all about enhancing the discoverability, the accessibility, interoperability, and usability. There will be a virtual archive information package that'll have knowledge graphs and ontologies and object store. And then again, the ESIP partnership here is we've been leveraging ESIP to improve the implementation and the interoperability, particularly with other federal agencies. So next slide. I did want to mention, I think Kevin mentioned a little bit about their, kind of data strategies as well. So we did, I think I mentioned this last year at this talk, that we did create and have approved our very first ever NOAA data strategy about 1.5 years ago. We're actively into the implementation phase. You can see the 5 goals there of leadership, governance, open data, building capacity, and collaboration. A couple of the updates that we thought you might be interested in. First is that we're standing up, we're in the final stages of standing up a data governance committee. This is going to basically build upon the successful model that we've had for well over a decade with our environmental data management committee. And it's broadening the scope beyond just environmental data to all NOAA data. We're also creating assistant chief data officers within our mission areas. So NOAA has 6 line offices: weather, ocean, fish, satellites. So we're in the process. Two of those line offices have already created ACDO positions. The other 4 are in the process. So we'll have a distributed leadership team for data governance and data lifecycle management, which I'm thrilled about putting this new team in place. And then the data policy and best practices. We desperately need to take a look at some of our procedural directives. Some of them are well out of date from both a policy and a technology perspective. So last slide. So maybe just a couple of areas that we'll look at exploring with ESIP. The first, I think we've mentioned before, the handful of science and technology strategies that NOAA released over the course of the past couple of years. I think members of our AIML and OMICS and UXS team all participate in ESIP communities. So continuing to look at ESIP experience and collaboration opportunities as we figure out how to support these new S&T strategies. I've already mentioned the data governance policy refresh. We're looking to leverage off of NASA on the next one. The open data, open science, open software is clearly something that has become of keen interest within our NOAA leadership as well. Just this week, actually, our NOAA Science Advisory Board, I learned that the SAB has created a new subcommittee specifically on looking at our current policy and framework in place to support open data and open science. So really looking forward. And I think there's a lot of opportunity with the ESIP partners there. Growing the Cloud Pathfinders program. Digital object identifiers continue to be a struggle for us in NOAA. We've got a team that's focused on figuring out how it is that we can do a better job of minting DOIs across the organization. It's getting to the point now where it's impeding our NOAA researchers. and they're looking at alternative solutions. So we need to come up with some kind of enterprise approach. And then lastly, looking forward to the opportunity for ESIP collaboration on our 2022 Environmental Data Management Workshop. So that's it, Susan, for us. Again, just the message is, we really value the partnership with ESIP and the community, and just thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Tony. Great updates. Appreciate it. From here, I will pass it over to Sky Bristol with USGS.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, since the last time that we chatted, I've gotten into a little bit of a new role in USGS as a senior advisor for data science within our energy and minerals mission area. So I've moved from bio, where I was spending quite a bit of my energy, into more of the geo side of USGS again. And so since I now have the word senior in my title, I hope you'll pardon me having a little bit of a senior moment and walking back down memory lane just a little bit this morning. So a couple remarks to kind of get at this issue of priorities for this year and moving ahead. So David Brooks published a New York Times commentary on January 13th that he titled "America is Falling Apart at the Seams." Some of you may have seen that. Some of the stats and opinions he expressed in the article were really kind of depressing to me and others, I think, kind of anxiety producing as well. They echoed kind of a general and sometimes specific sense of unease I've had over the last few years of this strange existence we're in, both through the pandemic and our national and local politics. Some days it kind of seems like everything I've been striving for in terms of open science and open government over the last decades is based on an underlying assumption that's being called into question. Everything I've worked on in my government service for 28 years or whatever it's been has been geared toward making it mandatory and easy at the same time to make our full scholarly record and everything that stands behind our scientific findings and our government decisions open and transparent. In that pursuit, I have two co-equal stakeholders that I keep in mind all the time. I first think about and work with our current and next generation scientists to make more building blocks available to accelerate the pace of discovery. I work with this because everything I continue to learn and that we learn about our planet points to how critical it is that the knowledge we're developing about our human interactions with complex Earth systems is vital to what happens with or without us on this planet. At the same time, I'm constantly mindful of the need to have an open and transparent government in the service of the public trust. I've worked hard to push us toward a paradigm that often seems at odds with our culture, projecting our data, information, and knowledge out into the public commons, as opposed to trying to draw the public into our own venues, whether that's applications that we produce or data that we're putting out. I've tried to go in that project out versus pull in kind of modality. I've regularly faced headwinds on both of these fronts. Organizations, as you might know, don't generally celebrate their disruptive forces. They're necessary, but not universally appreciated. Some of the things going on in our society right now, though, have me questioning the very foundation of my personal motivations. Making science and government actions more traceable, transparent, and open to scrutiny may not matter if people aren't going to pay attention to the truth or come together on a basic acceptance of observed reality. In my small now and generally rural part of the country, I'm out in Western Colorado now. We've had a strange ongoing saga right here locally of an elected clerk and recorder who took it on herself to surface assumed evidence of meddling in the 2020 election by copying some voting machine logs and taking them to a My Pillow Guy event. It's been a weird and bizarre dive into the way people are perceiving their world and our society and the rapid redefining of societal norms. This kind of local issue has driven home a much broader dynamic that gives me a fair bit of anxiety about what I've put so much of my life energy into. All that said, even though I've been anxious, I know a lot of us have been anxious over things over the last while, I'm still fundamentally an optimist. It's been incredibly refreshing for the time I've been able to spend this week with the ESIP community, where I know many folks here share the same underlying motivators that have driven me. So there are three specific things right now that are direct intersections between USGS and ESIP that leave me feeling hopeful. And I'll share these as a way of identifying some priorities for USGS where we need continued partnership through this community. So we really continue to see growth and maturity in the level of USGS engagement here in ESIP and with many of our partner communities. Some years ago in an AGU talk, one of my USGS colleagues, who now happens to be my boss, described us as a primarily intramural organization. This was somewhat in the context of funding and the fact that we mostly fund our own staff to do our work, but it also pointed out a dynamic where we too often simply talk amongst ourselves. But that's changing and has been accelerated through the almost entirely remote work posture we've been on under for the last couple of years. We've increased involvement evident here in ESIP with a solid representation of USGSers across the community. We're learning from and contributing to the knowledge commons through that. There's market evidence of valuable shift for the USGS as we're starting to see reductions in a long tech gap that we've had that's long plagued us, at least on the natural resources side of government. We often describe ourselves as being at least a decade or 2 decades behind others in terms of our use of technologies. But we're closer to the cutting edge now than we've ever been, and it's due especially to heroic efforts of folks like Leslie Shee, Rich Signell, Dave Blodgett, Derek Gasaki, Abby Benson, and others who are on that edge and pulling the rest of us along in USGS. And the second dynamic that's particularly a byproduct of our broader engagement is an ongoing redefinition and expansion of the engineering and scientific R&D track in the USGS. This is around an evaluation mechanism called EDGE. The equipment development grade evaluation mechanism has historically been focused on a small handful of professional engineering positions, mostly dealing with and rewarded on patented hardware components such as sensors and other novel field and lab equipment. We're slowly embracing the software and digital aspects of today's world, though. We have more scientists and other professionals applying to the EDGE program, along with less traditional professional staff who've developed data science skills and abilities, partly through training here. Brave folks in these areas are putting their work forward for review panel scrutiny, and they're slowly forcing the more traditional part of our organization to grapple with understanding a different type of scientific contribution. That dynamic is starting to fill the research to operations gap in delivering science with a crucial engineering cycle, something I've talked about in the past. Thirdly, I'm also slowly, I think, starting to see a slight reduction in the artificial constraints in terms of data technologies we've erected across the Department of Interior in particular. I've been around long enough through the Fish and Wildlife Service and now the U.S. Geological Survey to see the initiation of the long drawn out process of litigation and pursuit of justice because of DOI's mishandling of individual Indian trust data. This essentially kicked off an era of deeper scrutiny and striving for central control over IT networks and data and information assets over the last few decades since 1996 and Cabell v. Salazar, which kicked that off. I may get in trouble for saying this, but it's really a travesty that it took as long and hard a fight as it did to get to a settlement on this massive failure that still doesn't address the core injustices. Perversely, though, for us, we've seen in government the way we've gone about addressing poor records management and the more egregious failings in our trust responsibility has had a net negative impact on our overall data management and use of technology, two things that could have addressed some issues in managing individual Indian monies. We focused overly much on the relatively easy issue of network security and centralized control of workstations and failed to address the more fundamental aspects of comprehensive data management from individuals up through every business unit. This has had a massive impact on our ability to access and use basic enabling technological tools and techniques across science and resource management and DOI. Perhaps though, because that centralized control is now almost a universal reality across the department, coupled with increasingly better articulated demand for tech capabilities coming from our professional science and engineering staff and resource management staff, we're seeing some indication that we have a more mission-minded IT management organization who are working with mission organizations to find a path forward. I've dealt with this myself just in the last year and seen some great progress toward reasonable ways of figuring out how to use technology better in the organization as a whole. So my hope is still strong that we in USGS, reminded when needed and supported by our multi-sector colleagues across ESIP, will carry through on these bright spots and build on them. We need community to keep us focused on the right things and stop worrying about the things that aren't quite as important. It takes a village to raise a child, to pass that quote, even one that's 143 years old, which the USGS is this year in another month. But I'm so grateful for the whole ESIP team and all of you across this community in helping to keep building this village that we can be a part of and help to carry us forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sky. Thank you to all three of you. As I said in my presentation a number of times, ESIP is about the people and the people that you all are and the people that you have in your agencies and you allow to participate really makes the community. And I think what it makes ESIP so unique is the public, the private, the academic sector, this place where we can all come together. Each of our individual organizations have different cultures, different barriers. If there's something that you struggle with in your own institution, ESIP is that place where you can come and find that maybe you're not alone. Maybe even better, there's someone else who's figured out a path forward, if we could be so optimistic to dream about that. So thank you for your remarks there. I really appreciate it. Moving along, just one moment. So most everything that I covered in my remarks, I wanted to announce to you all is available in ESIP's 2021 annual report. That is found here online, and here is the DOI for it. Want to thank our new communications manager, Allison, for creating such a beautiful report for us. So with that, for those of you who are new, and usually it's our tried and true that show up for the state of ESIP, but if there's anyone out there that doesn't quite know how to engage with us, esipfed.org, get involved is a great place to start. We want to be your home. We want to be, people say they came to ESIP and they found their people. And if you feel like you found your people this week, we want to help you engage in the other 51 weeks of the year. With that, I would like to take this opportunity to move on to our awards presentation. And to do that, I will turn things over to Ken Casey.
Thank you, Susan. So one of the most enjoyable roles of the ESIP president is to select the awardees for two of our most prestigious awards, the Catalyst Award and the President's Award. So let me dive in first with our Catalyst Award. This honors this award honors those who have brought about positive change in ESIP and inspired others to take action in the past year. This award goes to Abby Benson, Chair of the Biological Data Standards Cluster and a biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey Science, Analytics, and Synthesis Group. Abby got this cluster off the ground very quickly and through her enthusiasm, vision, and dedication maintained one of the highest attendance rates of all the clusters. Abby always shows up bringing her A game and wanting to use innovative ways to interact with the cluster participants. In short order, Abby helped the group develop a critical output, a primer for new biological observation data managers. And so importantly, Abby achieved all of this in a way that was extremely inclusive, embodying the ESIP ideal. So please, everyone, turn on your cameras or use those Zoom reactions now to show your appreciation, and join me while I say congratulations, Abby, and thank you for your positive and impactful influence on ESIP. All right. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Okay. Next, I'm pleased to present the President's Award to Dr. Robert Downs, which honors the individual. The President's Award honors the individual who has made the most significant contributions to ESIP in the previous year. Bob is the Senior Digital Archivist and Senior Staff Associate Officer of Research and the Acting Head of Cyber Infrastructure and Informatics Research and Cyber Infrastructure and Informatics Research and Development at the Center for International Earth Science Information Network season at the Columbia University. So Bob also wins the award for the longest job title of any ESIP community member. Well done, Bob. Bob is involved in everything in ESIP. Everything ESIP, Bob has a hand in. He joins so many collaboration area teleconferences. He takes the lead in nominating others for major awards, which takes substantial effort. He's participated in multiple administrative committees. He shares his technical insights freely and is a great connector and promoter for so many groups within and outside of ESIP. If you've been involved in ESIP for more than 5 or 6 minutes, the odds are very good that you've interacted with Bob. And if you have interacted with Bob, you'll nod your head in vigorous agreement. So yes, that's a cue to all of you to turn on your cameras and start nodding your heads in agreement when I say that Bob brings a positive attitude and a willing spirit to everything he does. Can you imagine a world in which everyone followed Bob's lead? It brings a smile to my face just thinking about it. So congratulations, Bob, and thank you for all that you do for the ESIP community.
Thank you very much, Ken. And I also want to thank the ESIP staff, the chairs and co-chairs of ESIP committees and clusters, the leadership of Season and CDAC, and my family for all their support. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. And so now let me send it over to Mike Daniels for presentation of the Partner of the Year Award. Mike, take it away.
Hi, thanks, Ken. What a great set of awards you were able to present there. So I'm Mike Daniels. I'm the chair of the ESIP Partnership Committee. And in addition to evaluating partners, one of the great things we get to do is select the 2021 ESIP Partner of the Year. The membership of our committee includes Fellman Gaia Neo, Ryan Burkharmer, and Paula Ardvidson, and of course, Susan and Megan from ESIP staff. The ESIP Partner of the Year Award, selected by the Partnership Committee, honors an ESIP partner organization that best exemplifies the spirit of ESIP. This is often displayed through collaboration, supporting data exchange, contributions to the ESIP community, or leadership in earth science data areas. The 2021 ESIP Partner of the Year Award goes to the Biological and Chemical Oceanography Data Management Office, also known as BICO-DEMO, for their active engagement and many contributions on behalf of our community this past year. BICO-DEMO has been an active ESIP Type 1 partner since 2013, both contributing to and benefiting from the ESIP community's exploration and development of novel ideas, practices, and infrastructure that support data stewardship and use within the geosciences. BICO-DEMO regularly co-chairs ESIP meeting sessions that help advance the goals and objectives of these clusters. It also participated in additional ESIP clusters during the past year, such as the Biological Data Standards Cluster, for which BICO-DEMO assisted in its formative workshop in 2020, and recently provided feedback on its biodata standards primer during this past July meeting. The BICO-DEMO team also attended and actively contributed to the Marine Data Cluster through its monthly meetings, and is currently in the process of providing feedback on ESIP partner products, such as the draft recommendations for publishing non-tabular complex ecological data sets. Many of these activities have brought together new stakeholders and strengthened collaborations to advance data stewardship within the geosciences. BICO-DEMO actively contributed to the ESIP Research Data Alliance Earth, Space, and Environmental Science interest group this past year by engaging journal publishers and repositories to address data publication workflow challenges. The ESESIG unites the ESIP and RDA communities to bring awareness and coordination to emerging and ongoing international data efforts. The group actively seeks engagement from the international community and is sensitive to include underrepresented groups in the data stewardship from the global south. Finally, BICO-DEMO's leadership in the Science on Schema cluster has resulted in 3 version releases, which are archived at Zenodo with citable DOIs, the most recent in February 2021, as well as leading the SOS cluster toward endorsement by the ESIP community. Please join me in congratulating this great group of folks on their selection as the 2021 Partner of the Year. They really are great.
Can I say something? Can I say thanks, Mike? Thanks, Mike, and the Partnership Committee for nudging us to nominate. We really appreciate the recognition, and it's really easy to give back to ESIP because there's of the benefit and the value that BICO-DEMO gets as a project by participating. I think ESIP's collaborations allow BICO-DEMO to innovate to a point where we deserve the recognition you are presenting us with. So thank you very much to ESIP.
Thanks, Danny. Now I'll turn it over to Doug to announce the winner of the Martha Maiden Award.
Hey, everyone. Next slide. If there are 2 slides. Back. All right, so I've been coming to ESIP meetings since about 2010. And at each award session, I've listened to the speeches and often wondered what I would say if I was able to receive an award of my own. Now, don't panic. I'm not trying to make this about me. Just bear with me. So over the years, I've refined this down to a single borrowed and modified quote. And it's this. Now, next slide. If I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of Chris Lennis. It's an omitted quote from Sir Isaac Newton, by the way. And that about sums up my professional relationship with Chris. Some of my best work has been the result of an initial idea from him, which I've taken on and he's provided mentorship for. And I'm sure this is true of many of you in the audience right now as well. So I nominated Chris for this award, and in doing so, I had to provide a bio. And it was at this point that it struck me that I knew nothing about him prior to his work at ESDIS or the Goddard DAC. So I asked some of his colleagues at NASA ESDIS for some information. I got nothing back. So I made stuff up. No, Susan, I didn't make anything up. Yeah, I did. Given that, I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing you to a scientist sired by scientists, a scientist who can trace his lineage back to Aristotle. I first met Chris in the summer of 1978 in the foothills of the Himalayas, preparing for an ascent. Me, a callow youth aged 8, and he a veteran of many expeditions. Next, he amazed me still further at Goddard DAC, where he helped provide interoperability between the DAC and the EOSDIS, where he championed various ESIP initiatives from within the realm of Earth science data discovery, federated search using OpenSearch and schema.org, to name but two. At ESDIS, as a system architect, he pushed forward the adoption of new technologies, including the overseeing of the migration of the EOSDIS to the cloud. At ESIP, he pioneered subjects such as knowledge graphs and usage-based discovery, topics that you've seen have been very prominent in this current session. And so, without further gilding of the lily, and with no further ado, I give to you the Martha Maiden Awardee for 2022, the despot of discovery, the conqueror of the cloud, the eradicator of Everest, the one, the only, Dr. Christopher Lewis.
Hey.
I'd like to show the actual copy here. So I get to say a few words after that. I'm not sure how I could possibly follow that introduction though, Doug. Thank you very much. I do want to thank Doug for nominating me. This was a tremendous surprise and I'm tremendously honored, particularly because both the name of the award, Martha Maiden was someone that we all looked up to. She really essentially founded, the modern EOSDIS, as well as ESIP. And so it has a special, I think, a special meaning for those of us within NASA, within EOSDIS. I do want to also say a few words of thank you to folks that I've learned how to work in groups from. So my wife, Pat Zapp, for instance, within her own profession, she's taught me a lot about what it takes to work with very diverse groups with different viewpoints, which is a really critical aspect of ESIP. In fact, it's the benefit of working with groups in ESIP. I also want to acknowledge a couple of my mentors in this respect, Peter Fox and Greg Leptic. I know we all wish that they were here with us today. And then especially I want to thank all of the collaborators, the folks that worked with us in those various clusters, in the various workshops that put up with some of the somewhat experimental formats that we sometimes use for those workshops. And actually, can I show my screen at all? Is that possible? No, it's not possible. Well, anyways, I do have a picture somewhere of myself at one of my first ESIP meetings in Durham, New Hampshire, looking through some infrared spectacles at vegetation. And so that was maybe the genesis of this really my introduction into a diverse, a community with many, many different viewpoints and inputs. And it's more than just the actual contributions that ESIP folks have made in those various workshops or in those cluster meetings or any of those things. There's actually another benefit that ESIP provides. I think it's a little less known, but I think it's just as important. Now, if you go back to the original purpose of ESIP, it was really designed to bring in a lot more viewpoints, a lot more ideas from a wider earth science and informatics community, particularly into, at the beginning, particularly into NASA and EOSDIS, and then following shortly with our other agency, our sibling agencies like USGS and NOAA. And from my perspective as an EOSys engineer, it has succeeded tremendously in that, in bringing those new ideas in. But the other thing that's happened is that when I went to that first meeting, or actually the first meeting that I was really active in, the Durham meeting, I encountered this community, all of the clusters, all of the workshops that I participated in, which really clearly valued, that diversity, that valued varied opinions. And so I naturally assumed, that was just the way it was supposed to work. And ever since then, what I've been trying to do, both within ESIP and elsewhere, is to emulate that ethos, that, bringing in as many different viewpoints as you can, and often trying to sort of marshal them towards the, I can screen share now. Okay. Yeah, so here I am. It's not often that you get an aha moment captured on, I guess I would have said on film, but this is probably digital at the time. And this is really one of the things that really changed the way that I actually did work. And in fact, I actually pulled those attitudes back to my home organization as well, along with all my colleagues that were also participating within ESIP. With the result that our own home organizations became much more open to new ideas, ideas developed outside our own organization, which, believe it or not, was something of a change for us. And from that perspective, this ability to go back and change all of the organizations that participate within ESIP, as well as provide these ideas, as well as provide these other contributions, I think that is, in some respects, ESIP's superpower, if you will. I think it's going to be ever more critical as we go into this new era of open science. I think ESIP essentially models a lot of the things that open science is going to need to adopt in terms of attitudes and behaviors. And so with that, I think I'll stop talking. And I, again, just want to thank everybody, all of you in ESIP. It's really you, the people in ESIP, that have made those contributions and have influenced those of us that have taken back to our home organizations. So you've really influenced not just ESIP, but all of the organizations that we come from. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. I can tell you that even though I've only been at ESIP for a very short period of time, your name was one of the first that I heard, and someone that I was sure I needed to get to know very quickly. So as much as I'm sure the folks at NASA are sorry that you have retired, I just want to let you know that ESIP is a volunteer community. You are welcome anytime, and the more we see you, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So congratulations on your retirement, congratulations on this award, and thank you for everything you've done for our community.
Thank you so much, Susan.
With this, we are not quite done yet. So last year, as you may recall, we, just switching my view real quickly here. Last year, as you may recall, we did our caucusing for committees by electronically, not in a live session. And we wanted to try and mix things up this year and do our caucusing here while we have you all in the room. So I'm watching that participants number on the bottom of my Zoom screen. I don't want any of you to leave. We are going to set up breakout rooms that you can go into based on your member type. If you don't know your member type, you're not alone. That often confuses people. Megan has a list of member types or organizations by type, or we can help you find your way. So type 1s will go into a room, type 2s will go into a room, type 3s will go into a room. If you are not a type 1, 2, or 3 member, you are welcome to stay here. If you are not yet a partner, you are also welcome to stay here in the main room and ask questions about what it's like to become a partner organization. For those of you in your rooms, there'll also be an ESIP staff member there with you. And we have a chart we want to fill out. We basically, each of our administrative committees has, we have finance, governance, partnership, meetings, and we have our new diversity committee. We would like to have representation from each type. We actually need to have representation from each type on those committees. And so that is what we will do next. But before we move to that, I just want to say thank you Thank you to our outgoing board and our incoming board. Thank you to our federal sponsors who shared their thoughts with us today. And a special thanks to all of our award recipients. ESIP would not be the community we are without you. So with that, we will open up those breakout rooms.
Debating which ones would be the first ones back.
Does that mean that you guys have finished?
Yes.
Wow.
Woohoo!
Type 1s are organized.
And we came away with more volunteers
Is
than
that
we
type 1
needed.
or type A?
Is that a personality type?
And we have 8 volunteers instead of 5, which is awesome. I love it.
Amazing. Amazing. I know I was going to bounce to another group and I was like, wait, there's all these people here. I'll be honest, I don't have a formal closing program after the caucusing because I knew that some groups would be faster than others. So, you know, if you're waiting for more inspiration, I'm about tapped out today. No, I thank you for signing up for the committees, especially the new diversity committee. That is not limited to just the formal members. We need as many voices and faces and showing up in that space, especially. Just listening to Denise, the meetings committee will need, you know, if you feel really strongly about various topics of how we're running our meetings, how we're organizing our meetings, you know, committees are the place where you can show up and you can shape the organization into what you want it to be. But I'm happy to hang out here, happy for you guys to just hang out and have a conversation with each other. Happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Actually, now that you just said that, Susan, this is Danny. I'm curious if any of those committee meetings are open to are they open to general public, not general membership? Is that what you're saying?
Our committee meetings are completely open. We normally, like in the last year, I don't think I've ever seen any, I've only seen one instance where we had outside participation, but we probably don't promote that as much as we could or should. And yes, so committee meetings are open. If a committee needs to discuss business that they feel at all hindered doing in an open space, they can call an executive session if they need to do that.
Sure.
I haven't seen that
Thanks
yet.
for that. Yeah, thanks so much for that. I never really thought to ask. I've always been like, you know, either chairing or a member, but
In my tenure on the finance committee years ago, it would be 1 or 2 meetings that we would have a closed portion of.
Yep. And that makes sense.
Well, great job, everyone, ESIP people. Thank you so much.
Congratulations to you, Danny, and your backdrop was incredible. I was like, wow, that was a big trophy.
That was fast.
Well,
Except that the text was backwards, Danny.
no, stop it, Ken. You talked to Megan.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
You guys all heard my big fear. I was in the help room. Like I'm looking at it saying, oh, wah, wah, wah. How do I flip my image?
You are one of several people to ask that question this week, Danny. Don't worry.
Well, Megan was a great help. So,
it looks
so
like
Ken.
I couldn't resist. Sorry.
I know you.
Looks like we have another group that just kind of came back into the main room. As I said, I don't have any further closing remarks. I knew that different types might finish up at different times, so we're happy to send you on your way, or you're more than welcome to stay here and chat, hang out, ask questions. The conversation we just had, ESIP committee meetings are open unless there is a specific reason why a committee needs to have a private conversation. They can move into executive session, but I've never seen that used. So if you are feeling left out, you didn't get the slot you wanted, come on in. We would love to have you at any ESIP committee meeting, especially with the new diversity committee, especially moving into the Pittsburgh meeting in July. The more voices we have to help think through a lot of these areas, the better. So I want you to know that you are all most welcome.
Because the meetings are all posted on the calendar, I think, aren't they?
Yes, the meetings are all on the community calendar.
Well, thank you for a great meeting.
Our pleasure. Thank you guys.
Ditto
Everyone
here.
get-
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Wonderful meeting. Enjoyed it. Ciao, bye.
Again,
Yeah,
shout
get home
out
safely.
Bye, Philemon. Have a
Kudos.
great weekend, everybody.
Yeah,
to
great weekend.
ESIP
Yeah.
staff again for pulling all of this together. I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes that most people don't get to see, and really we need to appreciate all of you, or we do appreciate all of you for all the work that you do with that. So
Here, here. Thank you very
Let's-
much. It's been a fun meeting.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Yep,
Dan. It
thank
looks
you.
like the type 3s are still working at it, so I'm just gonna go see if they're stuck on anything.
Do you want me to go help them, Susan? Susan, I can go help.
Dan, you just want the password. I know.
he always wants the password.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
James.
Bye.
Bye-bye.